given that your operational experience has been across Africa, and Acha mentioned earlier this issue of scale and regionalization, how do you see things unfolding over the next decade or two in terms of creating more harmony in terms of regulatory frameworks and cross-border trade that will allow some of the smaller countries to achieve at least minimum scale, and some of those who are at minimum scale to actually achieve efficient scale? And if you could talk about that from your business experience, I'd be interested in that.
Absolutely. I think Shaka D talked about it, our rapper talked about scale this morning. But scale is a challenge in Africa. I mean, frankly, there are too many small countries. I'm from one of those. Liberia is 3.5 million people. I mean, there's no real scale. You got Togo, Benin, I mean, the list goes on. And so from multiple perspectives, this is important. And I think the continent, again, is, although very slowly, is beginning to harmonize the sub-regions, ECOWAS, SADC, COMESA, the East African Community, are all working towards trying some degree of some level of harmonization so that you can have free movement of goods and services, which, again, is important for any enterprise, not just for the Coca-Cola Company. Although we describe ourselves as a multi-local business, we're physically present in every geography. So we're not an export business. We employ locally. We have local manufacturing plants. Scale is still important to us, particularly as the business evolves and we go less from returnable to one-way packaging. Scale becomes quite critical. And the ability to move goods and services across borders will make it easy for us. So it's important for our business. It's beginning to happen, again, a bit too slowly. The challenge is the government is giving up some autonomy. But again, I think progressively as we get new leadership, younger leadership, more progressive leadership, I think the barriers will come down and you'll see more movement of goods, services across. And you create these regional hubs, if you will, where you can actually have scale and you can attract more FDI as a result. Same challenge there, because labor rules vary across the continent, and it's more difficult in some countries to fire and get rid of people, and so that harmonization will become important as well. And therefore, the cost of labor varies as a result. And our interest in hiring in one country, we may have more appetite to do so because of the flexibility of the labor market. So that is also important. Generally, I mean, South Africa is more advanced, and so labor rules, and because of the country's history, are a bit more onerous than, say, most of the rest of Africa. But that harmonization becomes important as well. Yes.
So, over there.
In the consumer products industry, when there are new entrants coming into countries or, coming into Africa as a continent, are you seeing them try to grow organically or purchase existing businesses, like in the supermarket business and others?
I think we see both, but more organic growth than we do acquired growth. I think most multinationals coming into Africa are bringing their brands, their technology, their know-how into the continent, and are, for the most part, trying to grow their businesses organically. But where there's opportunity to acquire local brands or local infrastructure or local capability, we see multinational companies looking at that as well. Unfortunately, the consumer landscape isn't that rich in Africa. So the opportunities to buy and acquire, that doesn't mean they don't exist. But it's not very rich, and so the limited opportunities to actually acquire businesses across the continent. But I would say companies do both, more organic than they do acquired. Yes. We'll come back on this side.
This might be a kind of a difficult question to answer, but at Coca-Cola, how do you guys think about the scarcity of water and how that impacts sort of a lot of the charts that we've seen both on population and consumption affecting your business model?
Actually, it's not a difficult question, and it's a very good question because it's something we look at, something we think about constantly. Water is an area we focus on with religion. I mean, quite with a lot of discipline, because it's the core of what we sell, and there are a lot of water-stressed countries around the world, not just in Africa, and so we focus on water from the following perspective. One, we're very focused on reducing the amount of water we use to produce our products within the four walls of the facility. Very focused on reducing the amount of water. Secondly, we look at recycling. So we're recycling the waters we use in our plants in all of our facilities. By the end of this year, every facility that produces our products around the world will have wastewater treatment facilities, so that water will be put back into the aquasystem in those countries that can support fish life. And this is a journey we've been on for the last 7-10 years, and we'll achieve that this year. So recycling is important for us. And then replenishment, the 3 R's. We want to replenish water. We invest in aquifers. We invest in wells, in sanitation, because water and sanitation go hand in hand. And so water replenishment is another area we focus on in communities around the world. And our goal is to be water neutral over time. So very focused on it. Know it's a challenge. It's a world challenge. And it's not just a challenge to our business. Yes, it is. And, we call it out in our 10K and that sort of stuff. But we also part of this world, part of these communities. As I said, whether it's Africa or anywhere, we live there, we go to school there, we buy there, and it's important for us as a system that we're responsible custodians of actually not just water, but of all the resources we use to produce our products. Yes.
I've had the experience of driving to the end of the paved road, driving to the end of the dirt road, walking 2 kilometers down the cow path, and being greeted in a hut with an option of Coke, Fanta, and Sprite. And I truly believe that you have the most amazing distribution network in the world. And my question is, given that, has Coke, obviously you have a phenomenal brand and reputation and product line in beverages. Have you thought of leveraging that distribution network more broadly for other kinds of products, particularly ones that might have other social impacts on health, et cetera?
The answer is yes. Again, it's another very good question because we get asked that all the time. Let me start by explaining why I think the distribution system works so well, and then I'll answer your question about leveraging it beyond what we do. And very, very simplistically, and it's much more complicated than this, but everybody makes a buck along the value chain. Yeah, I mean, that's... and so very simplistically, and we focus on that. So we focus on getting the product to the farthest reaches. I was saying to Ngozi last night and others that there are 54 countries in Africa now, and I've been to, I think, all except 10 or 11. So the point is we physically visit all of these villages and these towns to make sure the product is there. And so this is not by accident. But what we do in terms of sharing the distribution system is we actually share our knowledge, our capabilities with others so that they can replicate it and they can use that to whether to take drugs or whatever to the furthest reaches of the continent. We do work with malaria, Nets for Life, so we actually physically distribute nets. The challenges with distributing drugs is, again, unfortunately, we're a U.S. company. The U.S. is very litigious. There's a lot of liability with drugs, and we are also an ambient system. And a lot of drugs require refrigeration, etc., so we don't want to do that. But we do spend time teaching people on how to distribute their products. One of the challenges sometimes we have with NGOs is, and NGOs are changing quite rapidly, but the old classic model about, for profit or making money is a bad thing, sometimes gets in the way of helping to do the right thing. And we often say that if you want the drugs or whatever to get to the furthest reaches, there's got to be some financial incentive for that to happen. And that shouldn't be a bad thing. Now, a small entrepreneur, perhaps because they are philanthropic as well, might take a smaller margin than he would on selling a bottle of Coke. But to expect it'll happen for free, I think we're kidding ourselves. And the other reality is, while we are part of communities where we live and work, we are committed, we invest in communities where we live and work. The Africa Foundation over the last 5 years, together with our partners, have spent over $50 million in community projects. We don't apologize that we are a for-profit business. And so our distribution system has to primarily be to distribute our products and brands. But we do try to share the learnings, to share the knowledge. We engage with multiple stakeholders. Many examples I could give you of work we do. Another good example, we working with the Gates Foundation and with I've lost track of the NGO, but to produce mangoes in East Africa, and we'll guarantee the farmers will buy the output. So we do things like that to make sure, because that's sustaining. We benefit, they benefit, everybody makes a buck along the way. Yes, there was somebody else over here, but.
So given all this amazing distribution network that you have in place, I was just wondering, do you have any initiatives to try and incorporate these mobile technologies into making sure that the distribution network is getting more efficient and, like just-in-time deliveries and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, we're leveraging mobile from two perspectives. And we're just starting. That would be the one from a marketing perspective. We're trying to understand how we can use mobile technology from a marketing perspective. Running promotions using mobile. So if you buy a bottle of Coke and you scratch on the crown and you get a code and you enter and you get free mobile minutes, for example. And we actually have examples of that around the world, and certainly in Africa. So from a marketing perspective, from creating demand, mobile is an area we're beginning to exploit. But then also from a supply perspective, we use mobile technology on our trucks. Our MDCs, our market distribution centers, use mobile to place orders for product. So we are slowly beginning to integrate mobile technology into our business system, again, from demand creation perspective, but also from the supply chain perspective, demand fulfillment perspective. Early days, but we got people focused on making sure we're leveraging mobile across the continent.
We have time for one more question.
In fact, and again, this is not unique to Africa. In Japan, you can buy a Coke with a mobile phone, for example. Go to a vending machine, and you can actually purchase a Coke. And a few other markets around the world that happens today.
We have time for one more question. Which I actually got
As you move from a returnable product packaging, where the seller has an incentive to keep the bottle, to the one-way packaging, what incentives are you building in to prevent the proliferation of tons and tons of plastic waste?
On the one-way side, we around the world invest in recycling. So in Johannesburg, we started and took the lead on recycling of PET in South Africa, for example. And in many geographies around the world, we take the lead in looking at recycling. We run programs, and we beginning to put deposits in some markets on the plastic bottles so that you give people an incentive to collect it. And you will see some countries in Africa, kids collect it, and then they, for 5 cents or whatever the cost is, collect the plastic, and so they get paid as a source of income. All of that as a way to be responsible in terms of making sure that the plastic comes back, that it doesn't proliferate on the roads. And so again, it comes back to economics. There has to be an economic incentive for people to collect the plastic and put it back. Glass and plastic bottles sometimes have natural reuse in Africa. So people use it for other reasons. Yeah, they put palm oil, they put kerosene, etc., etc. It's a natural disincentive not to throw the bottles away. So it's a challenge. We're aware. We want to manage it. We got to manage the environmental impact of returnable glass, but again, it's affordable. And the environmental consequences of PET is actually you use less carbon footprint, but you got plastic around the cities and urban areas around Africa. And again, the challenge is to manage both responsibly. And again, we consciously try to do that.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.